Welcome to the Back to Life podcast, where we explore living well, loving well, and being well. I'm your host, Nicole, and I invite you to tune in for inspirational conversations to get you back to life. Let's get started. Welcome to the Back to Life podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and we're diving into the second episode of our Look Who's Talking series. Last time, we explored the voices that shaped us, and today we're going to take it even deeper with Sound Check. Who told you that? Today, we're going to talk about the messages we've internalized, where they come from, how they shape our daily lives, and most importantly, how we can rewrite the ones that no longer serve us. Joining me again is the incredible Shannon Spilsbury of Strengthened Foundations. Welcome back, Shannon.
Woo, woo. Thanks, Nicole. I'm so excited to dig into this topic with you. The stories that we tell ourselves, often passed down from our family, our culture, our past experiences, can have a huge impact on our lives.
Oh, for sure. So Shannon, let's start with the foundation. Mm-hmm. What about those core beliefs? Where do they come from? And how do they take root in our minds?
Yeah, a lot of times our core beliefs start forming in our childhoods. They can come from parents, family members, aunties, uncles, grandmas, grandpas,
yes,
teachers, people who influence us in our religious beliefs,
yes,
media, our culture. And if we hear certain messages over and over and over again, they become ingrained truths, even if they're not necessarily accurate.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. So, for example, if someone grows up hearing that you have to be perfect to be loved, which I think a lot of people do, that message can drive all of their decisions well into adulthood, right? And it usually leads to perfectionism and people pleasing and all of those other behaviors, correct?
Oh gosh. And especially, even thinking about marriages and families, if we have to feel like we have to be perfect in order to be loved, nobody's perfect.
Oh my gosh.
And it literally affects so many different relationships.
And then it becomes performative. Oh, it's not real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not to mention our self-worth. And potentially even career choices. It affects all kinds of different aspects of life.
Yeah, it affects how we actually show up in the world. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so how do we identify these beliefs that might not be serving us well? Let's fact check our inherited beliefs. What do you think?
Okay. An exercise that I'll have clients do is write down some of these reoccurring self-talk statements.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah. And then have them ask themselves, who told me this? Is this belief actually even true? Or is it just something that I've assumed? Is this belief based, in 100% truth? Or how much evidence do I even have that supports this either potentially false belief or a good belief?
Basically, who told you that?
Yeah, exactly. Who told you that?
I love that. So many times we're operating on old scripts that were never meant for us in the first place.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How do we know that we're operating out of this mindset?
Well, think about it. We can begin to identify with woundings of the past. Now, this is not all the time in everyone. I'm not trying to make a generalization, but a lot of times that's the lens in which we kind of move. Yeah. And some of those scripts can include, I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. I got to prove myself. Now, that's not something that we say on the surface.
Yeah.
But it is something that can kind of, I tell my clients sometimes it's kind of, you live out what you truly believe. And a lot of times on the surface, we can say, hey, I'm great. I don't, whatever. What are you talking about? I'm not going to take that from anyone.
Right.
But the way you live and the choices that you make says differently.
Sure.
And so we all sometimes have that incongruency, with our behaviors, our thoughts, and our, what we say. But
putting on that fake face, right?
Yeah, it can be a mask or sometimes. But I think it's important to ask ourselves like 3 questions just to kind of recognize, is there some kind of wounding that's going on here?
Yeah.
One question could be, do you feel like you have to earn love, approval, or acceptance from
Ooh,
others?
wow.
That's one.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And then another one could be, do you often compare yourself to other people and feel like you fall short? Like we were talking about with social media.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, do you believe that past mistakes or experiences define your value?
Wow.
Those
Yeah.
are just sample questions just
Yep.
to kind of check in with yourself
Sure.
and just kind of go, what is the narrative that's going on underneath? So
Yep.
when we're talking about those core beliefs, it's like, what is the story what's the script that's running
Yep.
underneath? What are some things that you encounter like in your practice, especially like with couples?
Yeah. I love that. And I think that plays a huge part in the misunderstandings or miscommunications in couples whenever we're not, I guess, checking ourselves with those questions first. And then, you know, that that brings into the relationship some faulty thought patterns that we have that affect, how we're able to connect and communicate with the person we're choosing to do life with.
Yeah, and it's like everyone brings their own
Funk.
Yes. That's a great way to put it. Yes, yes. We bring our own baggage there, but it's like, where are we traveling?
Yeah, right.
And are we traveling together or what?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's talk solutions. So, how do we rewrite these internal scripts?
Well, I think first we need to challenge the belief with evidence. And
Okay.
what I mean by that is like asking some of those integral questions. Would I say this particular thought to somebody that I loved? If I'm not going to say that to somebody I love, why am I saying it to myself? Right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is the evidence that proves this thought is true? What's the evidence that proves this thought isn't true?
True. Yeah. Yeah.
Even making columns, about like showing what is the truth and what's not the truth and kind of weighing it out that way. Another way to rewrite these internal scripts would be to replace it with a healthier statement, something that is more true. So, an example of this might be you mentioned earlier a thought that I must be perfect to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
You can say instead of that, I am worthy of love just as I am.
And that's true. And that sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
But it can sound textbook. While it's a true thought and it's really a way to do that, but to make it more practical for people, it's kind of like, what does that look like?
Well, they say that if you say something 5 times, that your brain believes that it's true, even if you know that that particular thought is not true. So I'm thinking if you say something on the flip side of that, something that's more encouraging, more loving to yourself, that if you say that over and over again, your brain is gonna believe that that is true over time as well.
So that's a great way of looking at that. So if we're talking about affirming what is true more and more so that we can build new pathways, when we talk about our brain being neuroplastic,
Yeah.
we are forging a new pathway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I like that. So I know for me, for some of my clients, ways for them to affirm, kind of like interrupt those self-talk patterns that are not helpful for them. One way they can do that is, how they can put that affirmation in front of them, on a daily basis. And so whether they have affirmation cards,
Mm-hmm.
whether they print something out that, they really want to remind themselves, frame it, write it on beautiful paper,
Yeah.
and put it by the side of the bed, in the bathroom, somewhere where they'll see it every day.
Yeah.
Another way for them to do that is you take one of those dry erase markers
Mm-hmm.
and write something on, their mirror, but not everybody wants to do that. You can wipe it off.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that might be, whatever it is in your face.
Yes.
You can put
Literally.
a reminder on your phone,
Yes.
To pop up quote unquote, randomly.
Yeah.
Whatever works.
I love it.
Yeah.
Those are great ideas.
What about you? What do you encounter?
I really encourage clients to start journaling and asking some of these questions that we've been talking about in their journals, and trying to dig deep as far as like figuring out what are some of these internal scripts that need to be rewritten.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, journaling has, and I think for some of my clients, journaling has been a great way for them to kind of dig deeper. They can, there's many ways that they can do it. They can just start with like, if one word, that has to do with script, and then what's the next word that pops into their mind, and just keep going until they're like, kind of deeper into, and not thinking about having to write, but deeper into, what am I thinking? What am I thinking about myself?
Oh yeah, when we write, we learn how we think.
Yes.
So that is really, really powerful. Mm-hmm. And I love journaling. I'm always encouraging people to journal.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage our listeners to try this exercise. Let's do a quick reflective moment, since we're talking about journaling and reflection. I want you to think about, what is one belief that you've carried that might need rewriting?
Oof, that's a good question.
I think so. Mm-hmm. And so when we're doing this, we're going to grab a journal, or you can grab a journal, and write down 3 limiting beliefs that you've discovered today. Perhaps it's, I'm not worthy, or I don't deserve, I need to prove myself. If I show my real self, or if I speak up, so they're going to think less of me. Mm-hmm. What are those kind of beliefs that you've been grabbing onto that you discovered today? And then next to those, rewrite them into something truthful and empowering.
I love that.
Kind of like, how can you agree with the truth versus agreeing with something that is a skewed view of how you've been showing up.
Right.
Say them out loud. Your words have power.
Mm-hmm. They sure do. And, I think a lot of times clients think that we as therapists, have all the answers, or that we get this stuff right.
No, we do not.
Do these things on a regular basis. So I think even your challenge is good for me to think about and do on my own too. Just to keep my own thoughts in check and keep them, focused on what is true.
Absolutely. We walk alongside our clients. We're not the authority or anything by any means.
Right.
By any means.
Yeah.
So this has been a really good conversation. Again, Shannon, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, very eye-opening. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And so we have one more episode left.
Okay.
And that is called Mic Drop. Look who's talking now.
Interesting.
And I think that'll be a really good thing, because we're going to be talking about owning your voice and speaking with confidence. So
can't wait.
Yeah. So join us next time for that episode. You don't want to miss it. And until then, take care of yourself and be well. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories about this series that we're talking about. You can follow us online at our website or on socials, and information about that is in the show notes. Be well.